To the press review now with Emily. Another big story today, of course, is the British papers. They're all discussing the aftermath of the local elections and what next for Keir Starmer.
Yeah, well, it's not looking great for Keir Starmer. He's under a lot of pressure after the results for Labour in those local elections. Let's have a look at the British front pages. And starting with The Guardian here on the left, this is their front page here this morning. It says his Labour rivals are circling in on him as he tries to cling to power. Around 40 Labour MPs called on him to step down on Sunday, most of them backers of the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. Now, of course, West Streeting and Angela Rayner are the two other interested parties, and Angela Rayner features on the front page of The Times. Now, just a clarification, this isn't a photo of Angela Rayner, but the article is on that side over there. She issued an ultimatum to the Prime Minister: take immediate action to move Labour to the left or face a leadership challenge. And the Mirror on the left tabloid here is talking about that as well. This is a photo of Angela Rayner. It says Starmer is going to lay out his fight back agenda. The Prime Minister is expected to make a speech later today, which will make or break his premiership, according to the paper. Let's have a look at the right-wing tabloid, The Daily Mail. This is its front page here today. It's also covering the story as you'd expect. It says that the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has announced that he was ready for a leadership challenge. And obviously, cartoons have also been pouring in. But let's have a look at the Telegraph. This is Blower's cartoon here. He thinks that Keir Starmer should be up for a nomination for the worst psychodrama at last night's BAFTAs.
Perfectly put. And we're expecting Keir Starmer to speak in about an hour and a half. So we'll bring that to you on France 24. Next, Emily, The Guardian. You mentioned The Guardian earlier. This time, though, they managed to get hold of some of the diaries of the Iranian Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi.
Yeah, this is a Guardian exclusive. Let's have a look. The paper managed to get its hands here on some writing of Narges Mohammadi, obviously the Nobel Prize laureate. Now, those notes were smuggled out of prison by fellow former prisoners or visitors as well. And she describes the violence of solitary confinement, constant interrogations, beating, and the lack of access to medical support. All of these things she experienced across her many stints in prison. Now, she's been incarcerated since the 12th of December and is now in extremely poor health, and she was released last night on bail to receive medical treatment. Let's have a look elsewhere in the press and go to El País, which is also talking about Iran, but has a slightly different angle with this article here. It reports that Iranian authorities have intensified their repression against dissidents, including Iranians abroad who criticise the regime. Iranian authorities are freezing bank accounts or seizing properties belonging to opponents, a practice that continues alongside an alarming wave of executions, at least 27 since the start of the conflict. And still on Iran, let's have a look at the New York Times with this article here. It says that on top of everything else, Iranians are now also being hit by mass layoffs due to the government-imposed internet shutdown, which is crippling Iran's tech sector. An Iranian tech group estimated that the shutdown is costing the country up to $80 million a day.
Something a bit different in the French national Libération today. They're focusing on Cuba.
Yes, it's on their front page. The French paper talks about an asphyxiated island in peril, as you can see on this front page. The paper sent one of its reporters out to the island to meet with locals, and it features on a number of its pages here today. Cuba is lacking fuel, electricity, medicine, and tourists. Now, the lively streets and tourist hotspots of Havana are empty, and visitors are down almost 50% from 2025. Now, the impact on locals is huge. The reporter, for instance, interviewed a former tour guide called Julio, who's now a security agent in a car park, but his salary is not enough for him to be able to live. So he's going to leave Cuba to try and find a better life elsewhere. Now, since the US has almost completely closed its borders to Cubans, he's probably going to try for Suriname or Mexico. Now, Julio is just one of around 2 million people who have left Cuba since the COVID-19 pandemic, which represents about a quarter of the country's population.
And finally, from Emily, she's going to take us through the coverage of some of this weekend's football. Emily's got a bit of a football fan yourself, aren't you?
Quite a bit of a football fan, and I have to say it's a good time to be a football fan. But let's have a look at the Spanish papers, and specifically the Barcelona-based Mundo Deportivo. Obviously pretty chuffed here this morning on its front page, celebrating the 2026 Spanish La Liga champions, FC Barcelona. They won 2-0 against Real Madrid last night, meaning that they were uncatchable at the top of the table. So Barcelona coach Hansi Flick therefore takes home his second La Liga trophy in 2 years. But it was an Englishman, Marcus Rashford, who gave Barcelona the early lead there in the 8th minute with an absolutely stunning free kick. He becomes the first English football player to win La Liga in 41 years, the last one being Steve Archibald in 1985. And meanwhile, in England, the title race continues. This is the sports section of the Telegraph here today, following yesterday's game between Arsenal and West Ham. The league title chase continues, thanks in part to VAR. This was a controversial incident that happened right at the end of that game, which ruled out a last-minute equaliser for West Ham, which, if allowed, would have given Manchester City the slight advantage in that title race. So it's still all very much to play for there.
It's always those VAR controversies, isn't it, Emily? Thanks a lot. Emily Boyle there with the papers for us on France 24. A lot more coverage coming up after the the quick break after the weekend. I'm behind myself. We're going to be talking about the UK elections and Keir Starmer, in fact, in perspective. So do stay with us if you can.